Okay, so here are the updates that I've done. This is the FPV version 3. I haven't named my plane yet, but that is the model from Mikey's RC. Pretty much all the exact same specs for the servos and the motor and everything like that. I took a couple of the additions that were from flight test. That includes the placement of the motor back here, and I used their little motor mount from Hobby King. I used their rudder and stabilizer. This is an awesome plane. I'm not very good at flying at all. Pretty new to the hobby, and this is the first plane that I've been able to keep in the air for any amount of time. It flies. It basically just floats. It's really easy to control. I've been doing several tests. Sorry I don't have any video of the first couple of flights. Here's my ESC here. And I put some landing gear on the bottom of it, just because I haven't had too much luck hand launching most of the planes that I've tried. I used some techniques here. I learned using the foam board from Experimental Airlines. That YouTube channel is just really good, and to me this was the first time I'd ever seen the Dollar Tree foam board method, and so that's where I got that. But this actual folding method here is not the one that Ed uses. I used the methods that I've seen on flight test and some of the ones they use in some of their planes, and this is all cut from one piece and then it just kind of folds together, and I'll show some pictures that I took of that. But I made this little cradle. This is removable. It's all on there with a Velcro. And so I've got this is my FPV pod, and this entire pod can come off, and then the battery, which is stored underneath it right now, like there in the back, I kind of have it in a horizontal, or actually kind of diagonal across the plane like this, just to distribute the weight a little bit, so it went on one side. The battery would be here on the nose instead of the FPV pod if I wasn't going to do FPV. I actually have not done FPV yet. This will be the first time that I try FPV, and I just kind of look at my pod here. I have my receiver here, the battery for the system here. This is minimum OSD from 3D Robotics, and that attaches to the APM, which is right here, and that relays all the data of what the plane's doing to the OSD. The OSD splits the feed coming from the camera and then overlays all the information onto it and then sends it to the transmitter, and then the transmitter sends it down to the station at the bottom. I got on eBay and bought a couple of these little things here, which are kind of like what your balancing plug would use on your charger, and I bought some of those, male and female, and kind of just connected them like this so I could make a dongle, and then got this JR plug here, and that goes into here, so that's how I get my power straight out of the battery through the balancing plug here. And I also can plug in an alarm if I want to. That's why I kind of made it like this instead of just a female plug. So that's how that works. I'm not using the discharge cords at all. They're just taped taped to it to keep them from flopping around. This little unit right here is very, very sturdy, the way that it's all built using the flight test method for their A and B style folds, and it works really well. As far as just being sturdy, it feels really sturdy. When the FPV pod is attached, I will route the battery wire out to the front here, plug it in there, and just that's how I'll power the system. The first minimum OSD that I had actually got fried, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I did some research. It seems like there's a grounding loop if you use the same flight battery to power your motor, your APM, and then your minimum OSD and all this system as well. It has to be two separate batteries, or it's gonna fry it. And so, I mean, it's a little bit extra weight, but it's worth it in the end. Let's see here. The plane itself, and I mean, there's a whole build video on flight tests on their channel. It uses slave elevons, the top and bottom here, which are really cool. This is the first flying wing style plane that I've used. I really like it. The landing gear is actually removable, and I just used hangers and some shrink wrap. Actually, shrink tubing, I actually saw something like this on YouTube and kind of made my own variation of it. The original one I had just had like a bend in the bottom for the wheel, and then it kind of went up and did a little V, and then I just kind of rubber banded that to the fuselage, and that didn't work at all. That bent and flexed a lot, and needless to say, it didn't make for any good landings, and the takeoffs were a little sketchy too. So these here, they're very sturdy, and it basically just uses two hangers and two pieces of foam board, and everything is kind of glued together. And I also used some, I think, 18 gauge wire to attach all of the joints. I put a little bit of hot glue, and then I wrapped them in that wire, and then I put shrink tubing down here where I could, and then where I couldn't put the shrink tubing up here, I used electrical tape. So, and they're very sturdy. I also, in addition to flight tests, their support for the nose, which is this guy right here. Mikey's model does not have this here. You can see I've already taken some nosedives with it. This part here was added from the flight test video, and I added that as well. And then something that I had seen before, when people are kind of, when they know that they do nosedives a lot, kind of like I do. This is arrow, some arrow shaft that I cut in half. Kind of ran it halfway back into the plane, back onto this support here, and so the nosedives kind of send the weight to that point back there on this, and that's helped a lot too. So hopefully, this is, like I said, this is the first plane that I've been willing to put the FPV equipment on. It wasn't a whole lot of fun trying to balance the center of gravity on this guy. Center of gravity needs to be 13, I believe it's 13 inches, which is this little red line here. And trying to do the original balancing was pretty tough. What I've kind of started, the first time I put like a dowel rod across it and kind of balanced the weight like that. Now what I've been doing is I've been kind of grabbing it up here, right, pretty much where the line is, and then just picking it up and seeing how it balances. And I've been trying to keep it just slightly angled down, just slightly nose heavy. That seems to work pretty good. So there she is. Like I said, not named yet, but she seems to work pretty good without a name. So that might be no name. Thanks for watching.